Good morning, everyone. We're back taking a look at my 2003 Toyota Tacoma. If you do not want to see the intro, go ahead and skip forward to this timestamp. For those of you that are wondering what we are doing today, other than people just reading the title, we are switching my push-button VF2 style transfer case over to a J-shift style VF2 transfer case. These transfer cases were put in lots of vehicles, including the T100, the 4Runner, the Tacoma, of course, the Hilux Surf, the first generation Sequoia, and these are mostly interchangeable. We'll talk about some of the differences, but the version that we are switching in today came out of a 1998 4Runner. They are the same bolt pattern for the back of the A340F or the R150F transmission. And the reason that we are switching over to the fully mechanical transfer case is because I am prepping for a driver's market dual shift twin stick setup for the single case in this Tacoma. So we're going to go through the steps of getting these transfer cases swapped. I've already prepped my other transfer case to go in. It's ready to go. So we're going to work on getting the drive shafts off and getting this transfer case out. There are a couple of things to do in the cab with the shifter bezel, and we need to unscrew the old transfer case shift knob and get that off and out of there. And hopefully this won't take too long. I don't have a whole lot of time budgeted today to do this, so we're going to go ahead and get these swapped around, and then we'll go do a quick test of functionality, and then we're done for the day. So I'm going to catch up with you guys over in the cab of the vehicle, and we're going to start taking things apart as quickly as we can. Currently no four-wheel drive light on the dash. I will throw up the shifting instructions right here. And it does say that we can be moving. This is shift on the fly because it's chain drive. So we will go ahead and roll forward. I'm just no foot on any of the pedals here. Push buttons to start. So we're going to push button to engage the four-wheel drive, and you can see that the four-wheel drive light came on over there. Now it does say that in order to go into for low, we need to stop and put the vehicle into neutral. So we're stopped now. Vehicle is in neutral. Now, I don't like to do this shift slow. I like to get it up and through because there are no synchros. So let's go ahead and get it up. There's neutral, and then one more. That is low. So we are now in the for low position, and then I can be in the low setting. So we're in for low and then low on the transmission. So now we're just going to crawl forward, and then this is the only time in for low and low when the diff lock can be engaged. You can see that it is shaking there. Sometimes it requires you to go into reverse here. I haven't had that much of a problem. There we go, it just clicked in. So that's functionality right now. Four-wheel drive, rear diff lock, low on the transfer case, low on the auto transmission. Okay, from this point you can see that I have just unbolted and unscrewed the center console and pivoted it out of the way. There are 4 screws that hold on this center piece that goes around the bezel for the shifters, and then there's 1 screw that holds on the end of the shift knob for the push button four-wheel drive onto the actual shift handle. So we'll go ahead and lift that up, and then we can pop this bezel up and off. Now, notably here, there is going to be a plug on the bottom of the shift knob portion, and you will want to take care to not damage the plug as it's coming out. So grab a screwdriver and unplug that. With that bezel off of there, you can see 2 things. First off, right there, you can see the shift boot. That is what we are going to be reusing. Now, mine has a cut in it because I'm running these wires. This wire right here goes to my winch, so I ran it down the transom, up the transmission, and then up to my winch. So you won't have that cut in your boot, but of course I do. This is the shift knob that we were talking about. So that is your push button shift knob orientation. Now I'm going to be reusing this boot, so I need to get this old knob clip out of there, and it's actually just pressed in to the end of the boot with these tabs. So I can squeeze these tabs and pop this old shift knob out of here just like so that I can reuse that boot. Now I'm also going to give this a good cleaning because clearly it has been a while since I have cleaned, and I want to make sure that this is nice and neat going back together so that it doesn't look like trash. So anyways, we will not be reusing this, so this can wait over on the parts bench until we are done pulling that old T-case out. We do need to take this bezel for the over shifter out, so that way we can get to the we can open up this boot area and actually unbolt the transfer case shifter from the top of the transfer case. So we'll do that in just a sec. Now that the 10mm bolts have been removed from around the bezel, this metal bezel here, and I've created a small slit in the carpet to get this metal tong piece out of here. So now that all of those 10mm bolts have been removed, the next step is to remove the bottom part of the transmission linkage. We're going to remove that underneath the vehicle on the transmission side. The reason that we're doing that is so that we can create some leverage on top to get the transmission shifter up and out of the way, so that way we have access to the transfer case shifter. We cannot lift up right now because we would be pulling on the transmission shifter linkage. So we'll go under the vehicle, we will detach the linkage, I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll come back up to the top, we will remove the transfer case shifter, and then we are underneath the vehicle from that point on. So I'll meet you down there to show you what you're looking for. We are now underneath the vehicle on the driver's side, and the linkage that you're looking at right here above the drive line, excuse me, right here, this is your shift linkage. This comes down from your transmission shifter up above, and I don't know if you can see it, but on that joint right there, there is a cotter pin. And so all that we need to do to get the leverage that we want is to remove that cotter pin and pop the retaining pin out, and then this linkage will be more free moving. Then we will be able to pivot it up and out of the way, so that way we can get that transmission shifter out of the way. When we take a look at where these shifters are coming up through the floor, right up through there, you can see that's what we're working with right there. There's the linkage all the way forward, and then, oh, hard to show you, but there is that cotter pin that we're going to be removing. With that linkage detached from below, what we now have access to do is to lift up more on this over bezel piece, and all we need to do is pivot it up high enough that we can clear this boot. Now it's hard to do in front of a camera, but you can see down there now we have access to the bolts that hold on the T-case shifter. So I'm going to get into a position on the other side of the vehicle where I can get that moved out of the way, and then we will start focusing on the transfer case itself. Taking the camera off the tripod again, this is a much easier way to show you what I'm talking about. So that was the top of the linkage that we just detached from the bottom. There's one plug right there that you have to unclip from the front of that over bezel, and then there's the shift boot, and this is your T-case shifter. So just 4 bolts holding that thing on, and then you can see right down in there, there's actually a hose that connects to the end of that shifter. So we want to go ahead and get those things off so we can get that shifter up and out of there. Okay, as you can see now we've got that T-case shifter up and out of there. Now is a great time to put your e-brake on and block off a tire if you have not done that yet. So go ahead and put your e-brake on, block off a tire, make sure your vehicle is not going to roll for the next steps, because we are going to be removing the drive shafts. And there's a couple of ways to do this. A lot of people like to put their vehicle into park and attempt to get it off that way. You do put a lot of pressure on your driveline doing that, so be careful. I'm going to hold the drive shaft with a pry bar going one way and then loosen the bolts going the other way. So we'll drop those drive shafts, we'll show you what that looks like, and after that it's just a couple of plugs and then literally the unbolting of the T-case itself. So these are sealed unit T-cases, and we have the other one, like I said before, prepped to go in. So this should be a quick setup moving from one side to the other. We are underneath the vehicle now taking a look at the rear drive shaft. Now you can see that the front drive shaft up here is not locked in place, so we are in the two-wheel drive position. It's not necessary to do this with another person, although it is easier, because what you're going to want to do is get up into the cab of the vehicle and shift the transmission into the neutral position, and then shift the transfer case into the neutral position, so that way you can rotate the drive shaft in order to get all of these nuts off that are on this flange up here. Now the bolt head that you can see back here is actually attached to the flange itself. So what I like to do is I like to hold onto this with a wrench and then get these off. These are a 14, and then rotate the drive shaft a little bit at a time and get them off all the way around. So right now, of course, the drive shaft is locked because the transmission is in a 2 or 4 position. So, but we know that it's in the 2 position because the front will spin. So anyways, we're just going to slowly work those off all the way around. And this is not a process that takes a long time, but you do want to make sure that you're careful with all of your plugs and clips and everything. And then speaking of plugs and clips, we have a couple to get off. So we have this one, we have that one right there for the speedo. There are a couple over here on this side that need to come off that actually go up into the transfer case. Now we will be reusing these, so you do not want to break these clips if possible. And then there is one coming out on the other side. And if I go around the exhaust, I don't know if you'll be able to see it from this angle, but there is one over there as well. So we're going to get these drive shafts off, get these clips off, and then we will reconvene at a later time. So what I found was a better way to try and get that rear off was to block off a front tire, release the e-brake, put the transmission into neutral, and I jacked up from the center of the diff there just to get the tires off the ground a little bit, and then I could spin the drive shaft. Now I unbolted the carrier bearing, that is that bearing right there, which goes right up into those 2 holes right there. And the reason that I did that is so I can have some clearance when I got the T-case out. Now I have the scissor lift over there. I didn't use it. What I did is I balanced the back of the T-case while I got the front drive shaft off, and then I pulled the T-case ever so slowly back and onto my chest, and then I rolled it onto the ground right here. That's a little bit of transmission fluid that just came out off of the coupling. So we'll go over to the workbench now and we will look at the 2 T-cases. Okay, taking a look at the 2 T-cases, you will see right off the bat that the T-case over here only has 1 shift rail. Now this of course is your high neutral low shift rail. Your 4-wheel drive shift rail is missing, and that is because you have the push button 4-wheel drive on this T-case. On this T-case over here, you can see we do have the 4-wheel drive, the 2x4 shift rail over here. We're all prepped to go as far as this T-case being resealed, but I do need to move over some of those plugs, and I need to move over my speedo from my factory T-case over onto this T-case. So the speedo is in the back, and then I've got a plug there, and then a close plug right there. And I will go ahead and shift those things over from one to the other. And then I have some old plugs like these that I'm going to use just to plug up that T-case so that I don't lose any fluid and I don't get any debris inside there. So I'm going to maneuver those things around right now, and then I will check back in with you when I have this T-case mounted in the vehicle and we're getting ready to put the shifter on. Okay, I want to show you where we're at so far. The transfer case itself is mounted, and I've pulled up the old wiring from the actuator on the back of my previous transfer case. Now this right here, this plug, this is my 4-wheel drive indicator plug. So this will be depressed in the 4-wheel drive position. This plug right here that you see, I've got a jumper going from 4 to 6. That is going to be my high 4 position sensor. So what I'm trying to do is tell my computer, because there's no electric signal being sent anymore, I'm trying to tell my computer when the 4-wheel drive indicator light is depressed, I want my front ADD system, meaning my front differential, to engage. So I'm going to take another jumper right here, and I'm just going to put it in here where the previous 4-wheel drive indicator light was. Now you're going to hear a weird little hissing sound, but that'll go away in just a sec. There, it's gone. So I'm just holding that jumper in there. And then I want you to listen, if you can, when I depress my 4-wheel drive indicator light. Did you hear that? It's kind of hard to hear with the furnace going in the background there, but that is how you bypass your electric shift. So I'm going to put this indicator here, this button, down in on the passenger side of my transfer case where my four-wheel drive shift rail is, and I'm going to figure out a more permanent way to keep that jumper in there, or maybe just cut and splice those wires. But that's the way to do it, is you want constant, you just want to cut this clip and keep these two wires together, and then you want to jump 4 and 6 here in order to get your four-wheel drive to turn on when the button is depressed. Now there's one more piece of the puzzle that I haven't figured out yet, and that is the four-wheel drive lights coming on the dash. I will work on that a little bit later, but I wanted to get the mechanical portion of this done prior to me actually getting the drive shafts back on, getting everything put back together, because I wanted to make sure that I had a good understanding of the positioning for the electronics here in the four-wheel drive position on the transfer case. So I mechanically have four-wheel drive, and the front differential will shift into four-wheel drive the way that it is supposed to with the ADD. So for the time being, that's good enough. I don't need the indicator light, but I will figure out how to do that at a later date. I know that the difference is just going to be picking some of these pinouts. So I'm going to work on figuring which pins I need to connect, and that will be how I get that four-wheel drive indicator light to eventually come on. But for the time being, everything on the four-wheel drive system is working, so I'm going to keep putting things back together. No surprises underneath. Everything goes back together pretty much the exact same way that it came off, just in reverse. The only thing is what we talked about, getting those wires spliced, and that, despite some of the dirt that I still need to clean, is what my interior will look like. And we are going to start it up and go see how the four-wheel drive works. Okay, with a little bit of light that we have left, let's go through the J-Shift fully mechanical transfer case functionality. Right now we are in two-wheel drive, no four-wheel drive indicator light. We are in drive. I'm just going to take my foot off the gas and off the brake. We are going to pull backwards for four-wheel drive, and you can see the four-wheel drive indicator light has come on. And if I give it a little gas, I can totally feel that the four-wheel drive has come on. This gravel is pretty slippery where I'm at right now, and it's grabbing very easily. Okay, now let's check to see if we can get the diff lock to click on. So we're going to go into neutral on the transmission, up into neutral on the transfer case, and up into low and low. So we're in low 4, low on the transmission. We're going to roll forward, and we're going to see if we can get the diff lock to engage. There we go. I just heard it click on, and you can see now that it is not flashing anymore. So the only light that isn't coming on now is the same light that didn't come on before, and that would be my four-wheel drive low light. But you can't engage your diff locker without being in low, and I can tell you for a fact right now we're in low. I mean, it's driving like a completely different vehicle. So I would say that's a job well done on the Toyota push button four-wheel drive to J-Shift four-wheel drive transfer case swap. Thanks for watching. I will respond to any of the comments that I see, and peace out. Please subscribe.